Hey guys, since I had extra terracotta clay from my DIY wall hangings, I made some ornaments. First I made templates. I made a circle, semicircle, and triangle. I cut out a 3-inch circle and made a 2-inch circle in it. The triangle was 3 inches by 2.5 inches. I used a 1/2-inch strip to form a smaller triangle in it. I also used the 1/2-inch strip on the semicircle, which was 3 inches by 2.5 inches. This clay dries very quickly, so I kept having to wet it with a damp paper towel. I formed a ball, then flattened it. I cut out the shape using an X-Acto. Then gently lifted the sides. Smooth out any rough edges. Using a tapestry needle, I made a hole near the top of the smaller shape. I repeated this with the other templates. Set the clay aside to dry overnight. I flipped it every once in a while to help the clay dry evenly. For my tassel, I used a 3.5-inch card and cotton twine. I wrapped the card about 30 to 35 times. Place an extra piece of string between the card and wrap cords. Then knot it. Remove it from the card and tighten the knot. Then separate the ends. I made a double knot at the top. Make a gathering knot. To do this, form a U shape with the extra string and wrap it around all the cords. I wrap mine 8 times going down. Place the end through the loop created. Pull the top end so that the loop gets tucked under the wrap part. Then cut both ends. I added a bead at the top. For the inner shapes, insert one end of the string through one side of the hole and the other end through the other side. Leave a gap and make an overhand knot near the top. I added the tassel to the bottom of the outline shapes. I brought the ends over the bottom part of the piece and back through the bead. I left a little space between the bead and tassel. Cut the extra string and cover the ends with the bead. Make an overhand knot with an extra piece of string at the top of the outline shape. Leave a gap and make another overhand knot near the end. Then trim the tassels. And here's how they turned out.